So good to be with all of you this morning again. There's a moment I've carried with me my whole life. My mother coming through the door after a long day. You could see the day on her. The tiredness was real, written in her body, and yet, when she walked through that door and I was there, something shifted in her face. There's still love and energy for me. I spent a long time wondering what to call that, and in today's sermon, I want to try to name that. But before I get there, let me first wish all of you a happy Mother's Day. I know this isn't a simple holiday for everyone, and I want to honor that before I move on. For some of you, this is a day of joy. You have called your mothers this morning, or your children have called you. There are flowers somewhere in your house, or perhaps you received a lei. The day holds warmth and memory of mothers and children. But for others, this pew is harder to sit in today than it was last week. Some of you have lost your mothers, and that loss is still fresh. Some of you have complicated relationships with your mothers or your children. Some of you have longed to be mothers, and it didn't happen quite the way you hoped. But no matter what your story, you're welcome in this room, exactly as you are, with whatever this day stirs in you. I love today's scripture from the Gospel of John because it starts and ends with love. In fact, we see love in different forms 3 times in that last verse. And we heard Jesus say something that I believe was spoken for every person in this room, whatever you're carrying today. He said, "I will not leave you orphaned." 6 words. But let's sit with that for a moment and think about when they were spoken. It is the night before Jesus dies. He knows what's coming, but his disciples do not, at least not fully. They feel it the way you feel a storm before it arrives, a change in the air you can't quite name. They've left everything to follow this man, their old lives, their families, their certainties. And now, something is shifting, and they're frightened. And he knows they're frightened. And in response, he doesn't give them doctrine. He doesn't give them a plan. He gives them a promise. I will not leave you orphaned. The word he uses there, orphaned, is not accidental. It is the word for a child whose parents have died. A child left without the one who was supposed to be there. And Jesus looks at these frightened people who are about to lose him and says, that is not what's happening here. Whatever it looks like from the outside, you're not being abandoned. There's a love holding you that will not let go. A love that keeps something back even when everything else has been taken. Now, let me go back to the story from the beginning. I grew up in Honolulu, raised by a single mother. Mom, I hope you don't mind me sharing part of our story this morning. I guess I should have asked earlier. But here we go. She was raising 2 boys on her own, working full-time, and that full-time sometimes meant other islands, sometimes meant late nights, sometimes meant she was physically somewhere else when the school day ended. And I understood as a child, even as a child, that she was carrying an enormous responsibility in that role. What the tiredness on her face never once told me is that I wasn't worth what was left. Every time she came through that door, something shifted. There was energy still left for me. Not the energy of somebody who had plenty left over, the energy of someone who decided that this right here is where the reserves were going. She was deciding one more time that her boys were worth whatever she had left. That is a mother's love. There's a theological word for what my mother was doing. which is practicing a love that does not abandon. A love that says, I'm still here. The world has taken much of me today, and I've kept something back for you. Some of you know that face, present in the way that matters. Some of you were raised by a mother or grandmother or aunt, or maybe a father that was playing both roles, or maybe even a neighbor who just kept appearing. If that's you, I want you to hold that face in your mind for a moment. That person was giving you something real, something that deserves to be honored today. And some of you didn't get that face, the door stayed closed, or the person behind it had nothing left, or love was rationed in ways that left you perpetually hungry. And if that is where you're sitting today, I want you to hear what comes next, not as a consolation prize, but as something the prophet Isaiah considered the most astonishing promise in the entire vocabulary of faith. You see, Isaiah was writing to a people in exile, their home gone, their temple gone, their whole understanding of who they were and who God was dismantled. There was a cry from inside that devastation, a cry of what every people in every age have felt at some moments. And it is this: the Lord has forsaken me. The Lord has forgotten me. That's an honest cry from inside genuine suffering. And the biblical tradition is not embarrassed by that cry. It records it, it keeps it, it hands it down through generations, because that cry is true to our human experience. And the God of Scripture is not afraid of true things. But then, right after that cry, comes the answer. And it's not a theological correction, but an image of a mother. The Scripture says, can a mother forget the baby at her breast or feel no compassion for the child she has carried? Even if she could forget, I will not forget you. Notice what the text reaches for. Not a king, not a warrior, not a judge, a nursing mother. The most visceral, physical, embodied form of love the ancient world could name. God's love, it says, is like a nursing mother who's connected to her child. The Scripture says this is the kind of love we're talking about, not a love that evaluates and rewards, a love that is incapable of forgetting you. And so often we use Father when speaking about the divine, and we sometimes forget how the divine also shows up to tend to us like a perfect mother. And the prophet Isaiah is not alone. Elsewhere in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures, it speaks of a God as mother too. And I'm going to make that point with a few friends. I'm just going to get my friends. So these are my friends. So in the book of Hosea, God is talked about like a mother bear who has lost her cubs, that fierce protective love. We have a hen which looks like some of our friends outside. In the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, Jesus talks about his love like a hen that's protecting her chicks. We have the eagle. In Deuteronomy, God's love is described like an eagle helping her chicks learn to fly. So I hope when you see these mother animals in stuffed or real form, you'll remember that God's love is like a mother's love. These images have always been in the text, but they haven't always been in the sermon. The Bible has always known that God is not what our tradition has sometimes made God, a distant king requiring satisfaction before grace. The Bible has also knows that God tends, that God holds, that God carries, that the love of the center of the universe does not abandon, it doesn't forget. It keeps something back for you even after the world has taken its fill. Which is exactly what we heard Jesus saying in the words this morning. the advocate, the Spirit of truth. That presence will not be outside you or above you at a distance that requires you to shout to be heard. The presence will be in you, closer than your own breath. A presence that doesn't stand at the door evaluating whether you're worthy enough before entering. A presence that's already inside the room when you decide to come through it. Mom, the love you practiced all those years, that stubborn, tired, showing up love, I believe now, was an echo of something larger. And here's what I mean. When sound travels through the world, it strikes something solid and bounces back. The echo isn't the source, but the echo proves that the source was real, that something moved through space with enough force to reach the surface and return. Every genuine act of love we have ever witnessed, every moment a depleted human being chose presence over absence, was an echo of a love that has no bottom. A love that was sounding before the first mother held the first child. A love that is sounding still. That love is holding you, even now, as a mother would. And your mother, if she came through the door and still had something left for you, was an echo of that divine, perfect love. Which means the love you experienced from her was always pointing beyond itself towards something that it could only partially represent. And if that echo in your life was faint, distorted, or entirely absent, the silence where it should have been was never the silence of God. The original sound was moving toward you the whole time. It doesn't require a human instrument to reach you, though it often uses one. It can find you directly. And it has been trying to. That love is holding you. Jesus knew this. On the night before his death, when his friends were about to lose everything they thought they had, he didn't point them outward towards a distant God who might eventually remember them. The advocate, the paraclete, as the ancient church called him, will be in you, he said. Not above you, not ahead of you, waiting to be reached, in you. The scripture says, I am in my Father, and you in me, and I am in you. That mutual indwelling, that presence nestled inside presence, is the original sound playing from inside the instrument itself. You don't have to travel to find it, and you can't get far enough away to lose it. It's a love that does not abandon. And on this day, with all it carries, the flowers, the grief, the phone calls and the silence, the gratitude and the ache, I want you to know that the sound is still moving. It moved through my mother's face when she came through the door. It moved through Isaiah's words to a people who have lost everything. It moved through Jesus' promise to friends who are about to be bereft. And it is moving through this room right now, looking for a place to land. In a moment, we're going to sing together, and the words of that hymn are a prayer this morning, a love that will not let me go. Not a love that waits to be found, not a love that rewards the worthy, a love that will not release its grip. A love that seeks us through our pain, whatever your pain. And whatever you're carrying out of this room today, the joy, the complicated, the unresolved, there's a love that has been seeking you through all of it and will not let you go. When you leave here today, know that there is a holy love that has never once forgotten you. Not when you're at your worst. Not when you're at your most forgettable. Not now. Not when the world has taken most of what you had and you came through the door nearly empty. There's a love holding you. There's a love holding all that you love. It always has. It always will. This morning, let us rest in that love.